Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So as you all know, I've been doing a series of videos about the Tyre Nichols situation, and there have been some developments. So I want to share my thoughts about these developments with you all. Some very disturbing news and information. I know that by now most of you have seen that video of the killing of Tyre Nichols. For those of you who haven't seen it, I will post a link to a video from CNN where they capture the entire incident so that people can have a full context and full understanding of what we're talking about here. This video was even more disturbing than I had imagined it to be, because here's a situation where, first of all, there is no justification for them even stopping this man in the first place. When you look at the video, you don't see any evidence of him driving in a reckless way. And apparently, that's an excuse that some officers use to justify stopping someone. So they stopped this young man. They claimed that it was for reckless driving. But, there are video cameras on the street. You have the dash camera. And I wonder if they had more footage of the dash cam, because you don't really see that in this video. You don't see the dash cam video that much. That's a real brief portion of the video. I want to see the footage of them approaching him in the vehicle, so we can see if he's driving reckless. And the reason why that's so important is because it goes to the point of whether or not they even had any justification at all for stopping this brother, for arresting this brother. Here is somebody that, for all intents and purposes, from what we can tell, was a brother just driving his car, minding his business, not doing anything wrong. But these police proceed to stop him. And not only do they stop him, as soon as they stop him, they're on 100 already. Before he's even opened his mouth, they are already hostile. They're already super aggressive. They are asking him to get out of the car. They are manhandling this brother. They're treating him like a runaway slave. And it's just so unfortunate that you have black police officers who don't value black lives. So they snatch this brother out the car. They chase him. He runs away, because when they first grab him, he's trying to calm these officers down. He's like, okay. He's telling them that he's on the ground, but they're still manhandling him as if he is resisting arrest, as if he is fighting with them, and he's not. He's compliant. But these officers are acting like he did something wrong. They're acting like he poses some kind of threat. So the brother, based on how these police are interacting with him, how they're being completely irrational and, acting in a super aggressive manner, that brother feared for his life, I believe. So he immediately started running from these officers as soon as he got a chance to. And then they catch up with this brother. And when they catch up with him, they proceed to beat the hell out of him. They are punching him. They are kicking him. They kick him in the face, kick him in the head. They punch him in the head multiple times. Like they actually restrain, they hold him up. They stand him up. They're holding him up. And while they have his arms, another officer is repeatedly hitting him in the face. This is not a situation where people can have any kind of justification for this. It's not a situation where he was swinging on the police, where he was fighting with the police. This brother was trying to be alive, trying to keep his life. They had him restrained, but yet and still they continue to pummel him. They continue to literally beat him like a human piñata, as one of the attorneys said. This is just inexcusable. There was no police justification for what they did. It looked like, a group of thugs just rushing somebody. It's not even like they weren't even operating like police, at least the way we're taught that police are supposed to operate. They were operating like some people that were just out to take off and go off on somebody, acting with vengeance in their mind, with some kind of intent to hunt somebody. That's what they basically did in this situation. And it's a damn shame, because it's like it wasn't warranted at all. Like, what did this brother do to deserve to be treated like this? It got so bad that this brother is crying out for his mother because he's near his house. So he's crying out and like actually hoping that his mother will hear him. And it's just a shame when you have to fear the people that are supposed to protect you. These police are supposed to quote unquote protect and serve, but here he is crying out for his life. And these police just proceeded to beat him. They beat him so bad that at some point he can't even speak anymore. Like his speech is messed up because of the damage that they inflicted upon him. And after beating this brother, beating him almost, he wasn't dead at that point, but after beating him severely, you know, they prop him up against a vehicle or something like that, and he's slumping over, and they're putting him back up. They showed zero compassion for this brother. They treated him worse than people treat animals. They treated him like roadkill, like his life didn't matter at all. And they waited around. You know, while this brother is bleeding, these guys are just waiting around. They're not giving him any kind of immediate medical assistance. They couldn't care less about this brother. And it's just, again, it's just so deeply disappointing to see other black people treat their own people that way. And as I said in other videos, like, these officers in many ways are similar to the overseer on a plantation, you know, carrying out the will of their white master, you know, having the same wicked mindset of the white racist police officers that we often speak out against. It's like, if you can't rely on the police for safety, if the police are terrorizing people, then who can you run to for help? And it's just a shame that you got this grown man in such a low state based on what they were doing to him, that he felt the need to cry out for his mother, much like how George Floyd cried out for his mother. It's just crazy. And, you know, a couple of things come to mind, you know, with this whole situation. You know, while these officers were, you know, waiting around, they were talking, they were, you know, profane. And that's another thing. Like, when they approached him, they were using all kinds of foul language, cursing and all that kind of stuff. And afterwards, after they had beat this brother severely, they're sitting around they're joking around, talking and everything. And like as if nothing had happened, as if this black man didn't just get severely beaten, as if they couldn't care less about this brother. They're sitting around talking, and they are actually trying to manufacture some kind of justification for what they did. You know, they're trying to say, well, oh, he was reaching for my gun, or I saw him swing and all that kind of stuff. He swung at one of us, or something to that effect. That's what they were saying. They were like trying to make up their story, just like in that movie Training Day, when, you know, Denzel Washington's character shoots this guy, and he talks to the other officers, and they plot out how they're going to explain this to the officers who arrive on the scene. That's what this reminded me of. Because when you look at the footage, you don't see any of the things that these guys are talking about. You don't see this brother reaching for any gun. You don't see him swinging at these people. You hear him trying to calm these police officers down. And I'm trying not to go all the way off, but trying to calm them down. He's saying, okay, and all that kind of stuff. But this is the situation. So they're trying to manufacture an excuse for what happened. And, you know, I'm glad that these officers have been fired. You know, I'm glad that they have been charged with murder. They've been charged with kidnapping, because they had no reason to hold this brother. They had no reason to stop this brother. They had no reason to put handcuffs on him and all that kind of stuff. They also have been charged with official oppression and official misconduct and second-degree murder. So that's a positive development. I'm glad that they moved swiftly in this particular case. But I'm going to address, you know, one thing about that, you know, and I wish that all police departments and state's attorneys or district attorneys handled these cases like this with the same sense of urgency, with the same sense of swiftness and, priority, taking care of it right away, bringing charges, because the evidence is abundantly clear. Anybody looking at that video can see that these police officers had no justification for what they were doing. None at all. This wasn't a situation where somebody was armed. This wasn't a situation where somebody was fighting with the police. This is a brother trying to calm them down. So shout out to LA. Thanks for your donation. I appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy situation. And one of the things that I've been talking about, like one of the things that we've been talking about is just like this idea of these being black officers and how the difference between how these black officers are treated compared to white officers speaks volumes. It absolutely does, and it's something that has to be addressed. It's something that people aren't really talking about as much as they should. And I'm glad that they have, put things on acceleration and, fired these people right away, press charges against them right away. But let's speak about the reality. The fact of the matter is, if these were white officers, this situation would have been handled differently. First of all, they would have been on administrative leave, as we have seen in many cases where they don't get fired right away. They get on administrative leave. They're put on leave, basically a paid vacation. That's basically what officers get when they kill black people, when we're talking about white officers. But in this situation, they were immediately fired, as any officer should be fired when they commit the kind of atrocities that these people committed. The other thing is this, like in terms of the charges being filed, that usually we have to wait forever and a day when it's a white officer that kills a black man or black person, period, black woman. We have to wait forever for charges to be filed. But when you have these black officers in place, charges are promptly filed, and that's a good thing, but it should happen when we have these white officers doing similar things. But people always give these white officers a benefit of the doubt. The same people that you see on TV talking about how horrible this is when these black officers are involved are the same people that when white officers are involved, they're making excuses for these officers. They're rationalizing what these officers did. They're trying to explain why what the officer did was right. That's what you have when it's white officers killing black people. So I hope that this becomes a model for how all of these police brutality cases are treated. And there was another point that I was going to make about this. But one thing that I want to talk about is I saw a video of Jason Whitlock. He's like a famous sportscaster or whatever, and he appeared on Tucker Carlson's program. And basically, he was basically trying to just blame this whole incident on the fact that you have a woman police chief. I mean, that just is sick. It is sick that you would have a black man basically blame the action of these rogue officers, on the police chief simply because of her gender and her race. And that's the kind of hatred, that epitomizes the kind of hatred that we see on social media directed towards black women in particular. And that's what you have in a person like a Jason Whitlock. It's just a shame that this person would make such despicable comments. It's just a shame, and then he went beyond that. Hold on one second. Yeah, he went beyond just blaming her for what these officers did, based on her gender, basically saying that because their police department is under the leadership of a black woman, that's why you had this kind of things happen. And that is just absurd. And when I heard those comments, the first thing that I thought about is when we see police brutality that happens when it's white officers, and a white police chief, I don't hear people like this step it, fetch it, Uncle Ruckus talking about how it's because it's a white male police chief. I don't hear them trying to, attack that chief based on their gender and their race and all that kind of stuff. They make excuses for white men, but when it comes to black people, they want to blame everything on the black woman. And then on top of that, he basically was playing into a lot of stereotypes about black people, about the single parent household thing, and basically suggesting that these men were, and in many ways they did act like criminals and stuff like that. And that's what we have here. But he played on these stereotypes of black men as thugs, as criminals, as gangsters when he was describing this whole thing. And I find that to be despicable. His statements were almost as despicable as the conduct of these police officers. It's just a shame that you have people like this. It's a shame that we have our own people that are acting worse than our actual enemies. And one of the things that came to mind, this is the point that I was going to mention earlier, was the fact that, that this couldn't possibly be the first time that these guys did this. The way that they acted. They've probably done this multiple times before. Stop people, brutalize people for no reason at all, no justification. So I think that there needs to be an even thorough investigation that goes beyond just the situation involving Tyre Nichols. This is probably a part of a pattern and practice by these officers. There may be multiple complaints against these officers, and those complaints need to be investigated. And if there are complaints against these officers, I'm sure that they may have been brushed off. Because when you don't have video and all that kind of stuff of the brutality, it's easy for these officers to make up a story. Those officers had no idea that everything that they were doing was being recorded by a street camera. They had no idea about that. So I'm wondering just like how many of these other incidents have happened. And I'm sure that without that kind of evidence, when black people came, like if that's the case, if they came to complain, they were probably brushed off and basically told that they couldn't rely on what they were saying, and there's nothing that they can do. There's not enough evidence to proceed with it, with the investigation. I'm just wondering how many more people have these officers treated like this, because it seems like they were almost like getting off with this experience. Like it was almost like an orgy of violence, and they were like intoxicated with power. And it's just a shame to see this happen. So I'm wondering how many more people have they done this to? How many more people have they stopped without any kind of justification? How many more people have they brutalized or even killed? So I'm really interested in knowing more about that. And I wonder about this unit that they are a part of, this Scorpion unit that's supposed to be aggressively trying to address crime in communities and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if that department or that unit has a record of abusing citizens. Now, it's important to stop crime. I have no problem with police doing what they're supposed to do, dealing with the crime in our communities. But you can fight crime without violating people's constitutional rights. You can fight crime without targeting innocent people and brutalizing innocent people, because that's what we have here today. Like, this is an innocent man. Instead of harassing innocent citizens, they need to be targeting people that are actually committing crimes. And even if what they said was true, even if they were truthful about this being him driving in a reckless manner, a traffic violation should not be some kind of death sentence. It shouldn't be viewed as some kind of capital offense. And these officers had no right to serve as judge, jury, and executioner. So, yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy situation. I will keep following this case. I hope and pray that there's justice for Tyre Nichols. So I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate it. With that, Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here. Peace and blessings. Have a great day.